Hi, welcome back. This is Arish from jtechnics.com and this is a video series on Android programming. In this video, we will have a look at basic UI controls in Android and we will look at something called adapters. Some of the basic controls we may use in an Android app are buttons, various text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, and toggle buttons. When we create a button, we could create a button with only a text or with only an image, or we can create a button with both text and the image. Android provides all the possibilities. We can use a button tag to create only button with text. We can use image button to display a button with image, or we can use a button with uh, with a reference to drawable to display both text and icon. To display a text field where user can input some text, we can use edit text. Some of the main attributes are the type of the input. The default is the text where user can type any text. And we have different types like email address, URI, phone or number. The important thing is when we displaying an input type of a specific type, Android will display a particular relevant keyboard on the phone. For example, when user is typing an email address, it displays a keyboard where @ symbol is there, the .com symbol is there. Similarly, and when we use a password, it displays a star in place of characters. We'll look at a demo soon. Then we have standard checkbox and radio buttons. With a radio button, we have something called a radio group where we can group multiple radio buttons so that only one button can be checked at a given point of time. And then we have another special button called toggle button, which has two states, either it is on or off. The example could be a button where you play or pause a music in your music player, or it could be Wi-Fi on or Wi-Fi off kind of buttons. Let's look at a demo. Here we have a simple hello world Android app, and let's start with looking at text view or the text buttons. And drag and drop the field onto the UI. If we go to XML, we can see it has a text field. Let's say this is text or say edit email. For email, let's have a type of input type. We can see there are a lot of possibilities. We'll say text email address. As you can see from the widgets, you can drag and drop different type of inputs, say email, phone, time, number. So all these are basically a edit text field with different input types. Let's drag and drop phone. If you go to XML, you see it's again edit text, but the input type is phone. Let's say edit phone. Next, let's use something like a password. Say edit password. You can see the type is a text password. Okay. Let's add a button and call it button save. Please note that we should not ideally have a text in our layout file. The text should go into strings.xml here under values. We can also specify the on-click event in the XML for the button. We can specify the function name, say button clicked. Earlier we saw we can associate a button click listener from our activity Java class. This is another option. The advantage being we can assign same function to multiple controls. This function should be part of our activity. And Android passes a parameter called view to specify which view was clicked. This function can be associated to any kind of view in our UI. To know that our button was clicked, we need to compare the ID. So view dot get ID equals to r dot id dot button save. Then we know that our save button was clicked. That is in case we are associating this function to multiple controls. Let's say on click of button we will display a message. We can use something called toast to display short message to the user. We need to have a context reference, then we have a text is we just say saved successfully. Although we're not doing any action right now, just a demonstration of UI controls and a toast. The duration is not a milliseconds, is not a number, it's basically a constant, either is it long or short. Then we say dot show. Let's deploy and test this app. So this displays our three fields. When I click on this field, Android pops out a keyboard. So our second field is a phone field. So it displays a relevant keyboard where you can easily type a phone number. So when I click on the first field, that's the email address, it displays a keyboard where you can type email. Say you can see @ symbol here. And the last was the password field. So you can see the moment I start typing characters, it becomes a dot to represent a password field. Let's add some more fields to demonstrate how to use checkbox, radio buttons and toggle buttons. I'll drag and drop checkbox. To use radio, better to use radio group, where we can make sure only one radio button is checked at a given point of time. And we have a toggle button. By default, radio group has 3 radio buttons. So I'll remove one to have only one of it. We'll say radio I have some IDs for female and male radio buttons. Similarly, I have a checkbox. I can have something like status check, active user or some text. And we have toggle button. I will say toggle music. In toggle button we have two states, so you can have text displayed for different states. Say text on is pause and text off is play. So we have the play, the radio buttons and checkbox. Let's look at how it looks when you run this. So we have a checkbox and we have two radio buttons. Either one of them can be checked at a time. And you have a toggle button which displays a line here to display, to specify or to indicate which is on or off. When I click, this means music is being played. When I click again, it's paused. To know the status of these checkbox, radio button and toggle buttons, we can use something called isChecked method. For example, let's get reference to toggle button. As we know, you get a reference to the UI control using find view by ID. So we can say toggle button dot is checked. We can display a message, say so you can say starting music. Else we can say stopping music. Quickly redeploy and test it. So when I click on the button, it displays a message saying starting music. This is not ideal, but it shows you how to use toggle button status in your activity. Now let's look at some controls which uses a list of data to be displayed. For example, the autocomplete text view, where you can have a list of data, say list of countries, and as you type the first 2-3 characters, it starts filtering the data in the list. And there are other controls like spinners is more like a drop down where you can select from a list of available entries. And list view basically you can look at contact list as a list view control. All these controls uses a data source, that is there can be multiple data. For example, list of countries, there are a lot of data in that. So instead of typing in the data into the UI control, Android provides something called adapters. Adapter is a bridge between your UI control like autocomplete text view or spinner or list view and your data source. Your data source could be an array of data, or it could be a cursor to your database, or data source could be anything. Adapters is a bridge between these two. That is, it gets the data from the data source and prepares the view to be displayed. To use adapters, we need to do is first we need to define a view for our adapter. Just like our layout, we can define another layout to specify how each entry in our list of data should be displayed. We can either create your own layout, or we can use Android's predefined layouts which are available to display this kind of list views. Next, we need to get control of the data source. We can create an array, or we can get a reference to your database cursor. For this demo, we'll use an array. Next, with this data, we can create adapter. Since we are using array, we use array adapter. It's subclass of adapter, and the constructor takes 3 parameters. The first is the reference to current activity in the context, and next is the layout reference, and the third is the array reference. Once we have the adapter, we can set this adapter to a UI control. UI control could be auto text view or spinner or a list view. Let's look at an example of auto complete text view. I'll go to my activity and delete all the fields so that we have more space to play with auto complete text view. And since I have reference to this in my activity, I will delete them. We drag and drop autocomplete text view. I'll go to XML and let's specify a ID to this. Let's say autocomplete countries. By default, there's a text. We can remove this. Then we go to our activity. On create, we need to now start creating an adapter. First step is we need to create an array. I have an array called countries which has few entries. Next, let's create an array adapter. type string. We know first is the context reference. So to refer to the Android predefined resources, we can use android.r. Then we have layout and we have simple list item. You can play around with different other available layouts. Then the final parameter is our reference to our countries array. So once we have the adapter, we need to associate this with our UI control. We need to get reference to our UI control. So once we have reference to our UI controls, we say countries dot set adapter. So we have reference to our adapter. Now let's deploy this app and test it. We have this autocomplete text view. When we start typing in keys, you can see the drop down comes by filtering the data specific to what you typed. If we type IN, it displays India and Indonesia. So you can see the data is coming from our array, and for each of the item in this array, it uses this layout to display. This layout displays just a text view for each of the entries. As you can notice, we are hardcoding this array in our activity file. This is not ideal. Ideally, we need to have that in our values/strings.xml. Let's modify the code. First, let me go to strings.xml and add array, string array. I will say name countries. If you go to XML, you can see we added a string array of countries. To add item under this, select ID item and start typing the fields, the values you need. You can either do it from XML. So we have 4 countries. Next, we need to remove these hard-coded countries, the array. Instead of hard-coding our array of data inside our activity class, we can also get this reference from our strings.xml using getResources.getStringArray function. And we know in our strings.xml we can put our text. Similarly, we can put array also. We're using string array and list of items. Let's see. Android app is deployed. So now when I start typing and it pops out India and Indonesia. Another advantage of using adapter is we can use the same adapter with multiple UI controls. Let's say along with autocomplete text view, I will add a spinner. Spinner is basically a drop down list which displays a list of data which you can choose from. Let's say it's ID as spinner country, and in our activity we'll get reference to this spinner. ID is spinner country and the type is spinner. For this spinner control we set the adapter country adapter. Now both these controls will pick up data from same adapter. Let's deploy and test it. So here we have a spinner, it's basically a drop down which has the entries from our string array. So as you can notice, the data array is used by both controls. Thank you for watching. For more videos, please visit jtx.com.